Good morning. Greetings from the State House. This is State Representative Mike Mrowicki and
Nader Hashim.
We're your two reps if you live in the Windham 4 district of Putney, Dummerston, Westminster, and we're here with another update from the State House. I want to thank the people at BCTV for providing these services, and we can talk a little bit more about helping them continue to provide those services. But Nader, we're in the fourth week of the session now?
Yeah, it goes by really quick.
Yeah, our days, it's 7:30 in the morning here, and we're
still drinking coffee.
Yeah, we're trying to get caffeinated to get the day going, but we have long days, we work hard, we use our time well, I think, but it's good to be able to put something out there to let people know what we're doing here. Now, you're in Judiciary Committee in the House, and
yes.
What have you guys been working on there?
Well, we've been super focused on the firearms bill that we have coming up, which is H610, and one of the main focuses of this bill is closing the Charleston loophole.
Yeah, no, can you describe what the Charleston loophole is?
So the Charleston loophole, the name derives from the shooting that happened in Charleston, where an individual was blacklisted from being able to acquire a firearm. And what people have to do when they purchase a firearm is they have to get a background check, and they have to pass that background check to make sure they're not prohibited by the federal government from owning a firearm. This particular person was prohibited, and he went to the firearms dealer, but there was a delay in getting the background check. And so there's this loophole where if there's a delay, the firearms dealer after 3 days can do what's called a default proceed, which is he can give that firearm away anyways, even if the background check hasn't come back. So what we're going to do is say that if the purchaser hasn't received their background check, then they have to wait until they pass their background check, and then they can get their firearm. And so that's what we're planning to do.
And in this case, the background check did come back, but too late.
Yes, yeah, it came back too late, and after it came back, he had killed 9 parishioners in a black church.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that many of us believe. These are common sense steps we can take to help make people a little safer here. And, you know, it's one thing we talk about adults, but one of the things I've been concerned about is knowing that our kids in schools now have to take regular time out to do lockdown drills, to have to do active shooter drills, and that's not what our kids should be doing in school. So if we can make them feel a little bit safer, and parents who send their kids to school a little safer, and I think that's something we should do.
Absolutely. There's another thing I wanted to talk about. So as you know, yesterday we had a little bit of a disagreement on the floor regarding a bill that I don't think got much press, but it's a bill that allows candidates for office to use some of their donations for childcare. And I remember when I was campaigning, I'd have to bribe my daughter who had just turned 8. I'd say, all right, we'll knock on 5 doors, talk to some folks, and then we can go get ice cream. And that worked for a little bit, but ultimately I had to start finding babysitters, and I also had her mother was also very supportive, and I was able to, get some help from there. But not everybody has that level of privilege, and, I'm a strong believer that, the doors to this building and the seats in the chamber are open for everybody, including young parents, and, they should be able to participate and use their money that's donated to their campaign however they wish.
It's just as valid an expense as putting gas in your car,
or exactly.
Paying for literature, something that's necessary. And I totally agree with you. If we want more diversity, especially among ages, we need to help people in this regard. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Glad to vote for that bill and send it on to the Senate. We'll see what the government does with it, though.
Yeah. And today we have paid family leave, the veto override. So it's going to be my first veto override to participate in. It's my understanding it's going to move, a little quick. We're not going to spend a lot of time arguing on the floor, because we've already had the first few arguments during the second and third reading, and this time I think we've garnered more support. It sounds like all the progressives are on board, and hopefully we have the votes to override it. there's a lot of strong feelings. I have a lot of strong feelings, especially about this bill. And I think that when we talk about attracting or retaining young families to this state, having paid family leave is a huge element. And when you're also talking about the 0.2% payroll tax, that would equal. I think if you get a $1,500 check, it equals $3 out of your paycheck, and it's not money that just vanishes. It's money that you can use to take 8 weeks off for a loved one if they get sick, or 12 weeks off if your partner or yourself has a child. Right?
Bonding time, they call that.
Exactly.
It's very small benefit compared to what the rest of the world does. But right now, out of the 40 top industrial nations in the world, the U.S. is the only country that doesn't have such a benefit. And I think there are only 6 or 7 other states. So it's time for Vermont to show some leadership here and to make ourselves more family friendly.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Now, speaking of families and neighbors, we had lots of neighbors up here last week, and I just want to recognize what a treat it is for us when we have people come from down south, as we say. Last week there were a lot of people here for the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board Day. That was the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board advocates for both conservation and new housing. And they do a great job in our area. There were a lot of people from Dummerston and Putney, and they were sharing a couple of wonderful projects that are happening. The Putney Mountain Group keeps expanding the area that they're conserving, and what they're hoping to do is have a trail that starts way up in Westminster now, connect to Dummerston. And then on the West River, there's another parcel of land that's being conserved right along the West River. So this is the legacy we're leaving our kids. So it's important that we recognize that and recognize the good people that are doing this work. That same day, we had a memorial resolution read for Paul Brune. Now, Paul has a wonderful connection to our area with his sister Bev Major of Westminster living here, and Paul's just been instrumental with a lot of the conservation work that's going on, but especially in his work with the Preservation Trust. He was essential in helping getting the general store rebuilt in Putney, and then next stage with their renovation of the church there to create this wonderful art center. So we want to encourage people to come up. Let us know you're coming up. We're glad to show you around the place, and you really have an access to state government and coming up to the building. So if you get a chance, come on up. We'd love to have you here.
Yeah, Mike, I think you covered that really well. It was great to see everybody from the board up here, and there's a big focus, as Mike was saying, on the Putney Mountain trails in that area, and those were some of the first trails that I explored with my daughter, and it's great to see the level of investment that's going into that area. So thank you for all that you do, if you're watching this.
Yeah. As we move along, our committees will be working on lots of different things. Halfway through the session, there's a mile marker we call crossover. That's where bills that are in the House have to get over to the Senate and over. Right now, something that both of our committees have worked on, just about every committee in the House has been the legalization of retail sales of marijuana. Now, many people have shared concerns that somehow this is going to make pot more available, especially to kids. And I think what we're doing is just recognizing the reality that it is for adults. There are many adults that use marijuana, and they use it reasonably in a reasonable way. I think we're agreed we don't want to make this more available to kids, and I think this bill is going to help us to make sure it doesn't get into the hands of kids, much more so now, where it's pretty much the Wild West out there.
Yeah, regulation in this sort of environment is very important when you're dealing with literally chemicals that you're putting into your body. Having regulations and rules in place regarding it will be safer for the consumer in the end. And the other aspect that I'm looking at is also the economic benefit. when, not only will there be a level of revenue that's gained from the taxes that come from the commercialization of it, but you're also going to have people who come to Vermont just for this reason. And they're not going to come just for the marijuana, they're also going to participate in other areas of the economy. They're going to rent out Airbnbs or hotels. They're going to go to our general stores and, hike on our trails maybe, who knows. But, they'll be participating, which will be good.
Yeah. So that's something that you should expect to see passed over. The Senate has passed a couple of versions of it over the years, and in the House we've taken our time. There are a lot of questions, and we want to make sure we answer all those questions. Something else that we talked about in our Democratic House caucus yesterday that's going to be coming our way is the Global Warming Solutions Plan. This is one of those signature bills that our caucus has been clear about in reflecting what we hear from a lot of our constituents, that we recognize global warming is real, it's here, and Vermont needs to do its part. What this plan will do is it actually create a plan. We've been doing a lot of things, but this actually creates a coherent plan. I think what we talked about in caucus yesterday is that it's actually going to hold government accountable, say we're setting these benchmarks and we expect them to be met. And as we move forward, this is just one part of the plan. There are going to be other things to do, but I know we've both been hearing from a lot of constituents about this one.
Oh yeah. I mean, this the Global Warming Solutions Act. I think we're both signed on to it. Like Mike was saying, it really gives more enforceability to the standards that we've created. It creates a cause of action, which is legalese for basically creating an avenue for people to take legal action, citizens to take legal action against the state if the state does not comply with the standards that it put in place for itself.
Yeah, at some point we have to walk the talk, and this bill puts some teeth into it, so we have to do that. Yeah. Time is now for us to act on this, especially, once again, if we're talking about the legacy we want to leave our kids and our grandchildren. These are the kind of actions we need to take. Are there things in your committee looking ahead that you're...
Yeah, we're also looking at something called Justice Reinvestment, and Justice Reinvestment is an ongoing project in which one of the ultimate goals is reducing our incarcerated population. Because right now, if we don't act on the number of people, or if we don't act on how we're incarcerating people, we're going to just see a continual growth of people being incarcerated, and there's going to be an increased cost of $43 million by 2025. If we do make changes to reduce our population, we'll see an 8 to 10% decrease in our incarcerated population and a cost savings of $14 million by 2025. And this Justice Reinvestment, it's, like I said, it's an ongoing process where we're continually getting information, but one of the biggest roadblocks that the Justice Reinvestment Group has told us is the lack of data. And so we're looking at how we can gather more data, because once you have the information, then you can look at that information and say, okay, so here is where we need to change certain things. Another issue is housing. People are being denied the opportunity to leave jail when their sentences are essentially finished due to a lack of housing. And that's essentially just criminalizing poverty. And so we're trying to figure out how we can work around that as well and try to make some changes that allow people to get released.
Yeah, it circles back to the work for the VHCB and our local housing trust, the Windham Windsor Housing Trust. Right now, there's really not affordable housing being built if it weren't for the trust. Mm-hmm. and it spills over into this area. It spills over into the mental health area, where the lack of housing is what keeps people institutionalized.
Yeah.
And as you said, there are people in jail right now who are there basically because they don't have the promise of housing. And we're not just going to set them out there and make more homeless people.
Right. And one thing I wanted to add to that too is furlough, which furlough it's similar to probation, but what it is essentially a person who was in jail is now outside of jail, but still under the same parameters and rules that they had to follow when they were in jail. So it's another word for house arrest, kind of. And people, I can't remember the exact statistics, but a large majority, I believe it was over 75%, are violating their furlough for technical reasons. So, let's say one of the rules or protocols that you have to follow on furlough is you have to be at work on time every single day. And let's say your car breaks down because you're living in poverty and you have no money to get it inspected or, fix whatever is wrong with it. Your car breaks down, you're late for work, you're going back to jail because of that. So it's little technical violations like that I think we need to take a deeper look at to see, why does that person really need to go back to jail?
Now, one of the other concerns that's come up within this has been the percentage of people of color in jail in Vermont.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something else you've been looking at.
It is. There, I don't want to throw just tons of numbers and statistics at you, but we are seeing a disproportionate number of black people being incarcerated in our jails in Vermont, and this ties back to the data issue that I mentioned. We don't have much more information aside from the fact that there is a disproportionate number of black people being incarcerated, both residents and non-residents. It's still disproportionate regardless of whether or not they're Vermonters. And so that is also something that's going to fall under the purview of trying to change around the furlough system, trying to change around the technical violations, and also handling the criminalization of poverty.
Yeah. Well, certainly work that's going to be ongoing, but something we need to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've got only a minute or so to go before we need to get to work here. Anything else you want to share with people back home?
It goes by really quick up here. I love every minute of it, even though it can be a little stressful sometimes. It's a great process, and there's a ton of great people up here, even though we may not all agree all the time. And it's just been a real honor and privilege to serve, and thank you. And thank you, Mike, for making sure I don't make ridiculous mistakes. So
It's been great to work with you and our whole caucus. Right at the beginning of the session, we were faced with the challenges of the new challenges that the Brattleboro retreat are facing. And our caucus came together and stepped up and said
very quickly too
that we need to show some leadership here and support, because what was happening from the administration was anything but support, and we needed to make sure they had some voices behind them at the retreat to know that we support them. We understand that there are some things that might need to change, but that the retreat is an essential part of our mental health system here. And our group really came together well, and it was one of those things made me proud to be able to work together.
Yeah, we've got a great delegation in Windham County. Everybody in that delegation is great.
And that's because of all the great people back home. So feel free to be in touch with us if you have a question, if you have a suggestion. We're here for you. Our contact information is on the legislative website. And thank you for watching, and thank you for BCTV for bringing our work to you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye now.